So something very interesting happens whenever a reporter or journalist asks Ben Affleck why he quit playing Batman. And it's interesting because he gives two completely different answers. And I wanted to sort of play both of these responses and discern what I think is really happening here, in my personal opinion, knowing, of course, that I can't really read into Ben Affleck's head. But listen to what he says when he's asked why he quit playing the role of Batman.
You're the Batman.
I think Robert's a great actor. He's going to be great.
He's going to be absolutely fantastic. Can you tell me what your the Batman would have been?
And by the way, if you don't know what his Batman was going to be, it was sick. It involved Batgirl, Barbara Gordon. It included Deathstroke. It included Deathstroke getting revenge on Batman and Bruce Wayne by essentially killing people closest to him. So I would have probably assumed that it would be a slight addendum of the Killing Joke story, where instead of the Killing Joke or the Joker paralyzing Barbara Gordon as he did in the Killing Joke, what it likely would have been is Deathstroke killing Barbara Gordon or potentially Alfred, because one thing we do know about the story as well is that it involves Batman's rogues gallery tormenting him and sort of reaching into the depths of Bruce's humanity and really punishing him in an awful way. And by the way, it's also a film that's entirely enclosed in Arkham Asylum, barring, say, a few scenes perhaps, but large in part, it is Batman facing off with his most well-known and infamous villains. It was written by Jeff Johns and Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck did write the script, so it was a really cool movie, very fascinating. Once again, roped in the Bat family, Barbara Gordon, Alfred, many others, and it also had Deathstroke featured as the main villain in the film, but also featuring other villains. Likely Joker would have been involved in the asylum, so the movie sounded absolutely incredible. But anyway, let's continue and understand why Ben Affleck didn't want to play that movie, despite the fact that the script, he says, was fantastic and the outline for the film was fantastic.
Well, we had a script. It was a whole thing. You know, really what it was for me was, and I like the script. I wrote it with Jeff Johns, who I have a lot of respect for.
And by the way, that's now going to be a controversial statement because everybody hates Jeff Johns after the whole Ray Fisher DC thing that has transpired. So people really dislike Walter Hamada, Jeff Johns, and Joss Whedon most of all, but Jeff Johns as well. Of course, Ray Fisher alleges that he had a private sit-down conversation with Jeff Johns, and Jeff Johns threatened his career and said that you're never going to work in Hollywood again, never going to work for Warner Brothers again if you make these allegations or advance this claim. So Jeff Johns is not on the positive side of fans right now. Nobody knows if that really happened. There's no recording or proof or evidence, and Jeff Johns hasn't chimed in to either rebuke or affirm the allegations. I doubt he would affirm them, but he hasn't even said they didn't happen. There was an internal investigation that was conducted. So I don't know what happened, but anyway, yeah, Jeff Johns is not popular amongst the fans right now for a number of reasons, but primarily that. And of course, Jeff Johns, by the way, is the one who is spearheading the DC universe in 2011 with Green Lantern. It was his job to get that off the ground. Green Lantern came out with Ryan Reynolds. It was a huge flop. And then obviously the DCU EU was rebooted 2 years later, but Green Lantern in 2011 was supposed to be a part of the DCEU. That was going to be the first DCEU film. And then Zack Snyder came along in 2013 and really jump-started off the DCEU. And now we're in 2021. The Snyder Cut came out. Who knows what the future of the DC movie universe is looking like? I think it's a mixed bag. But anyways.
It just so happened that, I had done a couple of those movies, and I kind of lost my passion for it. You know what I mean? I kind of lost my passion for telling those stories. I got interested in telling stories more like this, and it just seemed like,
Like this, he's referring to a basketball movie that he did for Warner Brothers.
Very clear to me that if it's not the most important thing in the world to you, you're not going to make a very good movie. A movie deserves to be made by somebody who's dying to do it and can't wait. And that wasn't me at the time, so I moved on.
So, wow, a couple of things here. One, he did pass up on literally probably the most desirable job that a male could fill in Hollywood. I mean, playing Batman is highly revered. You are in this upper echelon throne. You're immediately, even if you're like a C-list actor, if you play Batman, you're A-list. I mean, it's just that simple. Excluding maybe like Batman and Robin or something, like if you're in a Joel Schumacher movie, you're probably screwed. But, I don't know. Playing Batman's a big deal, man. It's a really big deal. It elevates your profile a lot. You make a lot of money. You get super famous. Batman is one of the most iconic entertainment characters ever created. He wasn't created in Hollywood, but he was popularized by Hollywood. He was always popular throughout the comics and the animated series, or excuse me, the 1960s live action Adam West series, which you could argue popularized him. But if we're talking about really propelling into the mainstream, that was Michael Keaton, that was Christian Bale, that was other people that really popularized the character and made him the pop culture icon that he is today. The comics didn't do that, but live action did, and Adam West did as well. So that's the explanation he gave. He just lost passion for it. He lost interest, and I agree with what he's saying that like if you're going to play that role that again is so highly revered, that's so sought after, you should be very passionate about what you're doing. Totally agree with that. I don't disagree in any way. But this is very different from the response that he gave when he was explaining the same thing. So here, this is my editorial opinion that doing Joss Whedon's Justice League made Ben quit wanting to be Batman, and I'm just going to play this 30-second clip and let you be the judge.
Really, I had a better time on Batman vs. Superman, which I really enjoyed doing. And Justice League was unfortunately touched by, some personal tragedy and death in Zach's family, and it just, like I say, sometimes things sort of work and gel, and sometimes they just, you seem to be just having one problem after another. I really loved Batman vs. Superman, and Chris wrote on it, and I really love Zach, and I love putting on. I had a better time.
So he had a better time working on Batman v Superman. He loved working on Batman versus Superman. And then Justice League came along. And you can notice just the change in his voice and demeanor. This is what everyone was pointing out in the comments. No one likes Joss from Greg. By the way, these are many of my hardcore followers and people that constantly interact with me in the comments. But this tweet also did reach other people. So everyone's saying Whedon's awful, Whedon is terrible. And, that's a lot of the main feedback here. And that seems to be what Ben Affleck is saying. Is he saying,
which I really enjoyed doing.
I really enjoy doing BVS. He loved doing BVS.
Personal tragedy and
personal tragedy struck.
Death in Zach's family, and it just, like I say, sometimes things sort of work and gel, and sometimes they just, you seem to be just having one problem after another.
One problem after another. Now, obviously, Zack Snyder leaving Justice League is a problem. But what were the other problems? He doesn't say there's one problem, which is, there's this tragedy and Zack had to leave. And then Joss Whedon came in and did a great job and finished off. That's one problem. The other problems was dealing with Joss Whedon, who's a nightmare. Now Gal Gadot has come forth and alleged, this is after, again, the Ray Fisher allegations. And she's saying that he threatened to end her career, which is the same thing that Ray Fisher said. Jeff Johns told him. So Jeff Johns, allegedly, told Ray Fisher that his career was kind of fucked if he made these allegations. And Gal Gadot, her career was also threatened, allegedly, by Joss Whedon. So everyone had a terrible experience with Joss Whedon. It seems kind of unlikely that everyone is lying. I mean, Ben Affleck didn't seem to have a good experience with him. Gal Gadot certainly didn't. Ray Fisher definitely didn't. So, at a certain point, nobody likes the guy. That's very emblematic of a problem. And the thing with Ben Affleck is that it's very clear that when he stepped down, it seemed as though Zach was not going to be a part of the DC movie universe. And Ben, he said, I love working on BVS. I love working with Zach. It was so great. And then there was a family tragedy. And then it was one problem after another. So problem number one is Zack Snyder leaving the project. And all the other problems are Joss Whedon, Jeff Johns, probably, even though he speaks very highly of Jeff Johns. So it might not be Jeff Johns, but certainly Joss Whedon and many others he had a negative experience with. So ultimately, again, those are two different accounts. In this account, the Twitter video that I showed you, is him saying that, he had a terrible experience with Joss Whedon, essentially. I mean, let's read between the lines here and be honest. He had a terrible experience with Joss Whedon, and he hated it. And it's kind of obvious if you watch the Whedon cut of Justice League, the theatrical cut. Ben Affleck is oh my God, he's going at a 3 out of 10 in those movies. I mean, he's barely even trying in those scenes with Gal Gadot and all the pickups that they did, all those terrible scenes that they added, that Joss Whedon added. And the Snyder cut's a bit different. He definitely was higher energy in the scenes towards the end of the film that were shot as additional principal photography, where he's vastly thinner. He's like 40 pounds thinner. It's very obvious that in like the Martian Manhunter scene, he's not the same. Like, he looks totally different. So anyway, putting that aside and the minutia of that, it's just really apparent that Joss Whedon is the reason Ben Affleck is not playing Batman. Because in the video, it's like, yeah, I lost my passion. It's like, okay, but what caused you to lose your passion? Because he said he loved working on BVS. What caused him to lose his passion was Joss Whedon. Joss Whedon killed Ben Affleck Batman. And for that, we can we can never forgive him. I mean, let's be honest here. WB and Joss Whedon did end that era of Batman. Just because Justice League was such a disaster and such a nightmare and so terrible. And it's really unfortunate because he was a great Batman. And I wanted to see him continue that redemption arc. Everybody knows that I'm not a big fan of Batman killing people, blowing people up as he does in BVS. It's not my thing. But with that being said, I was very excited to see him play in the Batman solo film. Again, it just sounded so good. As I won't recap it again, but that Batman solo film sounded incredible. And unfortunately, we're never going to get it, which is extremely disappointing. So thanks for that, Joss Whedon. It's very unfortunate, but it happens. And, we're moving on to Robert Pattinson and hopeful that he'll do a great job. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, follow me on Twitter. That will be linked down in the description below. Thank you guys for tuning in. See you in the next video.